welcome to the podcast for Health Issues India. And I'm very excited to have this dialogue with our esteemed guest today. This podcast is particularly special as we mark the World Health Day. And this year, the theme for World Health Day is Healthy Beginnings, Hopeful Futures. This theme focuses on enhancing the health and survival of mothers and newborns with the goal of increasing awareness about unavoidable maternal and infant deaths. This day provides a timely opportunity to not only reflect on the challenges that persist regarding women's reproductive health, but more importantly, it outlines what is needed to move from discussion to real life implementation and scale up action to address the current gaps. So, on our today's episode on empowering women through access to reproductive health care, we aim to explore how empowering women through accessible, affordable, and quality reproductive health care we can drive gender equality, economic growth, and social well being. In today's episode, we will discuss the gaps, the policy roadblocks, and innovative solutions that are shaping the future of reproductive rights in India. We are very honored to be joined by Dr. Mahima Bakshi, a renowned women and child wellness expert, youth ambassador for the International Youth Society, and a TEDx speaker. She's the founder of Birthing Naturally Queen, an online initiative for maternal mental health. She's a strong advocate for mother and child rights, breastfeeding in public, and women's empowerment. She has worked with some of the leading hospitals and has received multiple accolades for her work. Welcome, Dr. Mahima, and I look forward to having an engaging discussion with you. So, I would like
Thank
to
you so much,
start.
Monica.
Yes, welcome. I would like to start the conversation with a very important point that even in the 21st century, it is very surprising that how many women hesitate to reach out to doctors for reproductive health concerns unless there is a serious issue. Whether it is due to stigma, lack of awareness, or accessibility challenges, this hesitation is still a reality for many. So, given this reality, what do you see as the most pressing challenges women face in accessing reproductive health care today?
So, I think I would like to break this down into two parts. One would be unmarried women, and second would be married women. Because we are talking about 21st century, we do come across women who also have, pregnancies before marriage, for which I think the biggest difficulty and the taboo remains for them to go to a gynecologist for a termination of pregnancy. That I see as a major issue because, it is their right to, have a pregnancy or not. And of course, if in case an unmarried woman has ended up with the pregnancy, she has complete rights to go for a termination. And the challenge becomes that going to a gynecologist becomes a taboo. Going to a gynecologist and then telling that you are not married and having a pregnancy becomes a taboo. And then having the fear of the family finding out becomes a taboo. So I see a lot of struggle with unmarried women having pregnancies in India, where they face a lot of challenge in getting the right medical approach for the termination of the pregnancy, which I feel is quite a worrisome matter, because the wrong methods for termination can lead to more complications and can affect the health of the woman, and later on reproductive health as well. Second would be married women. So in case of married women, I do see a lot of women going with unplanned pregnancies, and because of the unplanned pregnancies, they end up with a termination, which can further lead to higher chances of infertility later in future. So I think that contraception is a big challenge in such cases, because a majority of women are in India are dependent on the male partner for contraception, and they fail to actually understand that they have an equal right and responsibility, and because of which it happens that they end up with an unplanned pregnancy, and instead of using a contraception by the female, then they choose to go for a termination of pregnancy. So, in both the scenarios, whether it is unmarried or married, I feel that the biggest challenge is, I think, in accessibility for female contraception. So we do see a lot of advertisements on TV or radio or print, where people do talk about male condoms. But if we look at the female contraceptive methods, we don't see much advertisement on TV, or we don't see much promotions amongst the different choices that a woman can have in terms of female contraception. So I think that the major challenge here is definitely about unwanted pregnancies that needs to be avoided, and the right medical approach to termination of pregnancies to prevent any infections or later complications in a woman's life. Also, if we talk about the infertility issues, where we do see a lot of couples facing infertility, there becomes a difficulty for women in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where they don't get the right access to infertility experts. And a lot of times, the pressure from the family comes on to the women about not being able to conceive. And a lot of male partners don't go for proper fertility checkups, fertility screening, and unnecessarily the female body only ends up going through the whole process of the treatments. However, in 50% of such cases, it's the male who has infertility, not the female. But then also unnecessarily, only the female has to undergo all the screening, the testing, and then the medical treatments. So I think that somewhere men need to, have equal rights and responsibility in understanding that they also play a major role in the fertility. And hence families need to understand that men also need to go to the doctors, to an IVF expert, an infertility expert, in case there's infertility, and both the partners, male and female, should go for screening and checkups.
Okay. You very rightly mentioned about the unwanted pregnancies and contraceptives and infertility. So all these topics, all these issues related to reproductive health, they're very sensitive topics in many Indian households, even these days. So how can we involve men in conversations about reproductive health and family planning to create a more supportive ecosystem? And also, how can communities be encouraged to have open conversations about it?
So I think it is a big challenge in India because, even if we see talking about periods in family or with men has, it has taken a different shape now, but it has taken so many years in India for actually, women being comfortable to talk about periods in their house, in their family members, or in front of a male family member. So I still feel that somewhere unwanted pregnancies and contraception is again another topic which would need a lot of coming years for people to open up and talk about it amongst the male members in the family. But I think that what can be done is definitely sensitizing the school and college students, and definitely bringing awareness on sex education, which needs to be done in schools and colleges, from where we see gender equality and understanding the role of contraception and preventing unwanted pregnancies or reproductive health and rights. And I think that's where we can start, bring a change, and from there have the next generation understanding that how male partners need to be sensitized towards it.
Okay. And you spoke about awareness. Um, I think there's another side of awareness where women need to focus on themselves first. There's always this angle that women are the providers in the house. So I want to understand that because things are changing with awareness coming, things are changing. I want to know that what do you think that how do access to reproductive health care will empower women more economically and socially?
So, definitely, if we will have that choices to make, whether it comes to the choice of contraception, choice of avoiding an unwanted pregnancy, choice of having a pregnancy when she's ready for it, when she's prepared for it, at the age that she wants it, or having the choices of the postpartum care that she would want, in terms of whether she wants to breastfeed her baby or not, whether she wants to go for a c-section or not. I feel that when a woman gets empowered to take care of her reproductive health, it definitely helps her for socio-economic empowerment as well, because that gives her the leverage of deciding, making her career choices, making her marriage choices, getting married at the time when she is ready for it. So I think that definitely this will help a woman to build up her socioeconomic empowerment, and at the same time for a woman to also teach the same to her daughters, or daughter-in-laws as well, because I feel that today's daughters, they learn what they see from their mothers. And I think one great change that we see in today's time is that they have seen what mistakes the mothers have made, and they want to avoid those mistakes in their marriages or their family planning. So I feel that definitely now women are more aware. There are more of working women, but again at the same time, the whole culture of working women or having the corporate sector, it makes it more difficult for women to plan their marriage and pregnancy at the right age, because they have the career goals, because of which we see that sometimes the marriage gets delayed or the pregnancy gets delayed. And hence I feel that that choice of a woman to be able to decide when to get pregnant and keeping the biological clock in mind, I think becomes a big challenge in today's time. So when we do talk about socioeconomic women empowerment, when we do talk about reproductive rights and empowerment, I think that somewhere we need the corporates or the work culture to understand, to support women to be able to plan a pregnancy at the right age, considering the rate of infertility that is increasing now in India and in other countries as well. So I definitely feel that it's a catch situation where we know that the woman needs to understand both the scenarios on how reproductive rights will make her more empowered, and at the same time getting the support from the workplace which will help her to make her reproductive choices at the right time.
I also want to understand, I want to know your views about, we understand that we need support from the society, from our family members, and from the workplace where women are working. But what role does, like there are so many government schemes like this, Ayushman Bharat, then there's National Health Mission, and these schemes, they aim to improve reproductive health care. So I want to know your views on are they truly making an impact on the ground?
So, if we obviously look at the sector that they are targeting, in that audience, we definitely see a lot of change. So, just two examples I would like to give in here. We have seen government schemes and policies in ensuring one, free distribution of folic acid and iron supplements to women, which has really helped in preventing anemia and in preventing folic acid deficiencies in pregnancy. So the government does supply free of cost distribution of iron and folic acid to women. We see a lot of women benefiting from it, the ones who are aware, and definitely a big role is played by ASHA workers over here to ensure that when they get to know women who are in the fertile period in that age, in that window, they ensure that they are there, as ambassadors to make sure that these government schemes are followed and implemented, where the audience, the target audience, can take the best benefit from it. The second benefit that I've definitely seen is from the scheme where there is a cash amount that is given to women when they register their pregnancy in government hospitals. So we do see that there was a trend where a lot of birthings at home was taking place in rural areas. But now with this scheme, it makes it mandatory for women to go and register their pregnancy in a government hospital, which makes it much easier for the government to track, for the ASHA workers to track and then ensure that the delivery happens in a hospital and not at home. Because when the delivery will happen in a hospital, the maternal health and the neonatal health is taken care of by the right team of experts, which helps us to reduce the maternal child mortality rate in India. So these schemes have drastically helped in the rural population to ensure that it helps in preventing and reducing the maternal and the neonatal mortality rate in India. So I definitely feel that these two schemes have worked wonderfully well and have helped tons and tons of women out there, especially in the rural areas.
Okay. So apart from these schemes, I definitely the government has many more schemes. But apart from these schemes, which more policy reforms do you believe are necessary to ensure that reproductive healthcare is more inclusive and accessible? That women in tier one cities and in tier two and tier three cities are receiving the equal access to reproductive healthcare. So, what more policies do you think will be helpful?
I think if we see the maternity policy, the maternity leave policy in India, 6 months maternity policy is something which has worked wonderfully well and has helped women to ensure exclusive breastfeeding during the 6 months window after delivery. But more policies which I think need to be introduced is definitely for women who are undergoing IVF. I think that we need to support them. Could be through, like we have Ayushman Bharat schemes, if it can cover the fertility. I think that would be great help because not everybody is able to afford IVF, and there could be failed IVF. There could be a lot of testing which needs to be done along with IVF procedures, or even babies in case they are born preterm, and the babies are put in the NICU, the newborn baby ICU. Sometimes it actually requires admission for 30, 40 days in the NICU in case of a premature delivery, which is mostly seen in case of IVF. So we need more government schemes that can provide health insurance in such cases, which currently is not covered by a lot of insurance schemes, and definitely not by the government scheme. So if the government starts including the insurance cover for IVF or for newborn baby ICU care, for other challenges that women can suffer from related to the infertility phase, I think that is going to really make it much helpful considering the infertility rate that is increasing in India. So I think that is something that can be, added on to the current maternity policy. But yes, definitely, I feel that the maternity policy that we have in India is one of the best maternity policies seen across the globe compared to a lot of other countries where we still see women struggling to get a government maternity leave for 6 months. There are lots of countries where 6 months leave is still not given under government policy.
Okay. And apart from the maternity leaves and other policies, do you think that the digital health solutions like the telemedicine and AI-driven consultations will help improve access to reproductive healthcare, especially for women from the underserved regions?
So, yes, because if we see a lot of, screening tests, like for example, if we talk about genetic screening, so we see that there is no attention given to it in the rural areas of the rural population or tier two, tier three cities. In tier one cities, we see a lot of hospitals making it mandatory as part of the whole fertility process, where genetic screening is definitely done to rule out any genetic abnormalities in the baby, and it helps in early detection so that it prevents us from giving birth to kids with genetic abnormalities. But in tier two, tier three cities, the attention is not given to it. Unfortunately, the availability and accessibility for such kind of testing is also a challenge in tier 2, tier 3 cities, because not every lab provides genetic screening testing. Not every hospital provides genetic screening testing. There are not too many, experts also available in this field. So I think that digital digital medicine, or online apps or AI can play a big role in ensuring a good provision and accessibility for genetic testing and screening in tier 2, tier 3 cities or in the rural population as well, because we need to prevent babies being born with genetic abnormalities. And with the fantastic the scientific update on having options with genetic screening, it really helps in preventing genetic abnormalities. And I think this is something that every woman or every baby should get the benefit of it, and it should not be somebody who can afford and only those people can get it. It should be something which should be covered under a women and child rights scheme by government, and it should be provided free of cost to every woman, so that we can prevent births with defects or preventing births with genetic abnormalities. It can really help in overall improving the outcome of the babies that are being born in India, or overall improving the whole maternal load or the family load, because if a baby is being born with genetic abnormality, it puts a lot of financial burden also on the family. It's not able to manage such kids. So I think that this is something that can be explored with the benefit of AI, and definitely the digitalization of medicine, and the entire scientific approach.
Okay. I also want to know your views that if you could implement one major policy change to, improve reproductive healthcare in India, what would it be?
So I think that if I could do something, I would definitely make it, the monetary factor should not be there. Anybody who is struggling to get pregnant, irrespective of the fact whether they can afford it or not, should be able to get accessibility to IVF treatments, should be able to get access to the fertility screening and testing, should be able to get access to giving birth in a good, clean, hygienic setup where the best medical experts, best NICU, the best OT, best anesthesia team is available to ensure that the mother and child health is taken care of, the safety is taken care of, irrespective of the fact whether anybody can afford or not. So if I could, I would just cover all these under government schemes and ensure that affordability should not be a factor for a woman to ensure that she's able to get access to the fertility treatments, the pregnancy care, the delivery, and the newborn baby ICU care.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahima. Those were really great insights, and it was a very thought-provoking discussion, especially the last point that you've mentioned, affordability. It's a very, very important point, and something that the government should really focus on, considering that we have people from various different economic strata across India. So thank you so much. And as we conclude, I want to thank you for sharing your invaluable insights and contributions, and your expertise and dedication to women and child health. It's truly inspiring and a beacon of what is possible when we unite for a common cause. So let's continue to advocate, innovate, and mobilize action for women's health. And until next time, take care and stay committed to driving positive change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.